I'm Jennifer Fairbanks, and I am here with Lisha Sanders with Stitch Love Studio. Welcome and thank you for being here. Why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hi, Jennifer, and everybody. I'm Lisha Sanders. I'm a digital pattern designer, a 3D certified trainer, and the co-founder of Stitch Love Studio.
Who is your partner?
Oh, Patrick, my husband.
Okay, but you're the brains behind the business, right?
The good thing about this partnership is that he is a graphic designer, art director, and marketing and social media and web design and all those things are his forte. And then I am a pattern maker, designer. I do all the sourcing, all the materials, all of the difficult questions from clients. So it's actually nice because we don't do the same things. And so it's easy to work with somebody that you complement each other when you complement each other rather than both being graphic designers, for example, because I've seen some those partnerships and they don't really work that well very often.
No, I totally hear that. My husband is my business partner, but I consider
Yes.
myself to be the boss.
Well,
Yeah. I was like, he does all the stuff that you said your husband does. So yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a mutually beneficial. He does the stuff I don't do, and I do the stuff he
Mhm.
doesn't do. So it works out well. So
Yes.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started in design.
Oh gosh. How long do we have? So I can see how much I can summarize this story. But I actually started very, very young. I 5, 6, 7 years old. I only had Barbie dolls and paper dolls. That was it. I actually, my mom gave me a little one of those the babies, the dolls that are babies, and I was like, "What am I doing with this? I cannot make clothes for this baby. It's too round for my, I couldn't comprehend how to
Uh,
play with that baby." So I used to design. To sketch a lot and to do actual clothing for Barbie dolls. So my godmother, I'm from South America, so this is all in South America. She used to sew, she was a seamstress, and then she used to have these bags of pieces of just remnants, so just fabric. And that was the most exciting moment for me to get those bags of remnants. And then the fun parts are like I used to have everything, like needles, scissors, thread, like everything. There was no, you cannot use the needles or anything like that. I used to use everything. So then I started pattern making, actually taking pattern making classes when I was about probably 12, something like that. And then I actually started a business. I started sewing like bridal gowns, cocktail
you were
gowns.
12.
Yes, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Jeez.
I already had a clientele, right? And then I just loved it. And I found out that I was really, that it was easy for me, like it flows. So what I did was I kept taking pattern making classes. So I know this is an illegal part, but that I just confess all the illegal stuff. But I actually used to fake my ID, so I was able to take the pattern making classes because it was an institute, and I actually was able to take all these pattern making classes for a long time. Like I took everything, men's, kids, women, all kind of categories, and then I just loved it. And I think that there is a big difference when you actually are able to practice on real bodies versus just drafting patterns and trying or expecting that it's going to be perfect right away. So I learned as I was going. And then I realized that people were complaining about little things like they were like, oh, can you take half a centimeter at the hip? And then I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We just go watch cartoons and I come back. And then the lady was like, okay, much better. And I did not do any changes to that dress. So it was such a psychological thing, right? So I said, well, wait a minute. When people go to the stores, they don't change the size small, medium, large, or extra large, or 10, 12, or whatever. They just buy whatever it is and then they are happy with it. But when you customize something, there are a lot of extra things that are showing up. So I decided to go to course street school, and then I learned underwear, swimwear, and some dancewear. So I loved it. And then my plan was to, okay, I'm gonna do everything by sizes, and then I'm not gonna have this situation anymore. So I actually did that, and it worked out. It worked out very well, and I love the laces and the sheer fabrics and all the delicate stuff. I used to put like these things together, these packages together with like corset and the stockings and the garter clips and all those things, and I just loved it. And then I moved to the States back in '98. I lived in Delaware, in Wilmington, Delaware, and then I didn't know any English, so I had to go to school, to the community college for ESL. And I actually like talking. So it was really hard for me not to be able to talk with people. So I had an extra interest, a special interest in learning. About a year and a half later, I moved to Miami, and then I went to this college for fashion design. And then I realized how important it was for me to have taken all those pattern making classes, because because I had two jobs plus I was going to school full time, I really didn't have much time. But thankfully, at least those classes that had to do with sewing, I was able to, okay, take it easy on those classes because I had already all this practice. So then I got my first job as an assistant technical designer. And the company was called Joy Athletic. It was in Miami, and they did like college prints, jerseys, and T-shirts and things like that. I had no idea what it was. I took the job, and I had absolutely no idea what an assistant technical designer was. I was like, this sounds fun, and the word design is in the title, so it's gotta be fun.
Was it any fun?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I got so lucky. My boss, which actually, by the way, I'm just training her in 3D. So it's hilarious because it was so many years ago, and I I really had a lot of fun. She speaks like four languages or something, so I was learning Italian at the same time I was learning all these things, and the people that I worked with were really fun. So, but a few years later, after I was having all this fun and I got promoted and I was getting all excited about this technical design job, the one day I went to work and the FBI was confiscating computers, and I was like, what is going on? And I realized that they were having this huge issue, I mean, obviously legal issue, and then the CEO owner was actually taken to jail. So that was my job. There goes my job. And it's interesting the part where when you start a job in the technical design or in the design industry, and you have just graduated from college, it's I probably I probably took maybe one class, like maybe for a couple of weeks, related to technical design, and that's why I didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
And then thankfully, when I realized that it was all the measurements, pattern making, corrections, communicating with factories, fitting process, and all of that, I was able to, oh, okay, I can do this. My brain actually works that way. So the good thing was that I was able to learn a lot and then create this blueprint for production. The sad part was that it's like your creativity just goes and falls asleep. Like you are not creative anymore. You don't create new designs, new things, new. I did create ideas and things that actually got developed in further when in another in other companies. Uh, but it wasn't the same, right? Like I used to design and sew and do the pattern making and do everything myself, and then now I had to just do this portion of it, which granted I learned a lot and I really liked it, but that is something to keep in mind when you're working in the industry. Is this something that you really love to do? Is this something that long term is going to fulfill you? And those questions are things that I never asked myself, right? After after like 10 years, I was like, I do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? You know, you start questioning and realizing that it's pretty similar in other companies. So I actually moved a lot. I got another job later for technical design, and then I have worked for another company in Boca. It wasn't fun at all. It was the total opposite. I was working with the owner of the company, and it was really a micromanager, really kind of serious and kind of mean person. So I ended up going to back to Miami, Perry Ellis. So I had a really good time there. I learned a lot. I have a lot of stories about stuff happening in Miami and the, models and all that. And then I actually left that job and then I went to Chico's in Fort Myers. And then it was actually funny because I never went to Fort Myers before, and if anybody listening have gone to Fort Myers, it's a very different place than Miami. It's a retirement area, so it's very different than Miami. And then I never went to see the place before moving. I just went to the interview, got the job, and then moved. And I was super excited because I quickly knew where everything was. Because I would ask people, hey, where is this thing? And then they would go, oh, just go 49 and blah, blah, blah. Oh, go 49. I know where that is. I know this place already. And then I realized it was like 2 streets in the whole town. I was like, oh, that's how I know everything. So learned a lot as well. And then I moved to Charlotte, actually here, to I got a job at Belk, a technical designer, women's again. But I ended up actually moving to Seattle, Washington, and I worked for Nordstrom there. Very stressful, very gray city. I thought I was going to be fine because I'm a vampire. I'm always hiding from the sun. I actually was vitamin D deficient when I was in Florida. I was taking vitamin D pills because I'm always finding the shades. And but no, it really affected me. I wasn't very happy there. And then I ended up moving back to Florida, to Fort Myers, and then I worked for Soma, which is also a division of the Chico's White House and Black Market Soma corporation. And I would say that that's my favorite job because I was doing dressy sleepwear and I got to do a lot of, I used to do a lot of hands-on work and my boss was great. And it was just, one of those small companies, well, actually, it was a big company, but it was like a small company within a big company, so it felt like it was a small company. So I had a lot of fun there, and then I ended up moving to Atlanta for Carter's, and that was my last job in the corporation. The corporation work, I actually ended up very sick. I had a lot of stress. A lot of people had a lot of stress. And then I was also realizing that I really didn't want to do this forever. And that's when it was really hard to make that jump to say, okay, now I'm going to go from this steady full-time uh, benefits or whatever job, and then now I'm going to go into either contracting or do whatever it takes for me to get my health back. And many of us have left the corporation world or life. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's not for everybody. Like not everybody is happy or comfortable or is their path to be in a corporation. So I started making patterns for people and then prototypes and stuff like that. And then I did a swimwear line. And then I realized that the partnership wasn't gonna work. It was with my brother and his wife and stuff, and then we kind of realized, oh, this is not probably not gonna work. And then we basically didn't sell anything. We didn't get to that point. We developed this whole line, and then we also later on developed another. underwear line, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm connected. I have a lot of people that I know, so we got the speed model from Spanx to do our photo shoot and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. But then also realized I didn't want to do production. So I think it's okay to go into testing different things and realizing it's not exactly what you want to do, and then gear back to whatever it is that you feel better about. So I ended up not selling that either, and then but I had all these materials, and then I put them in Etsy, and that's when I realized, oh, I sold all these bra molded cups, and people are asking for more. I know where to get them, and I know how to get them. I'm just gonna get more, and then people were like, "Hey, where are you gonna get more?" And I was just trying to get rid of these materials, but then it became really fun, and then I started getting more, and then I said, what would happen if I could get more materials and then go all, because brand making takes a lot of materials. So it was really hard for me to get all the materials because first I have that higher standard because I come from the industry saying, I know what are the kind of materials I want to get. Why can't I find them? And then you buy stuff online and they don't match the colors. So I spent a lot of money and time trying to match colors. So we ended up getting this dyeing company in Colombia, and then that's where we actually dye all of the materials. So we get the raw materials, dye them, or making sure that are all match and stuff by professional people, and then that's how we basically started Stitch Love Studio. Actually, before that, there were, I'm gonna say, a good amount, I don't know how many, but a good amount of failed ideas or failed businesses or, oh, how about this? No, that's not gonna work. Oh, how about that? Was not gonna work. We had a website with underwear, and it's like, nope, this is not gonna work. So a, lo- a lot of
It takes
unsuccessful stuff
it
in
takes
the
a lot
way.
of pivoting. I mean, being
Yes.
comfortable enough to pivot, and kind of where you found that, hey, I'm selling it on Etsy. That's how I started selling supplies too. I was closing my business because I was leaving San Francisco and going down to LA to teach full time, and I was like, well, I can't do this down there. I'm going to be able to teach full time. I'm going to have 8 to 10 classes. I will be happy. So I started selling everything on Etsy, and like before I knew it, everything was gone. Like within like a matter of weeks, I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I know where to get this stuff. And that's how,
Yes.
so same thing. Like that's, you see a need, not where you wanted to start, but it allowed me to get to the next stage of where I wanted to be. And I'm guessing that's kind of what powered you into getting into doing your patterns too.
Hmm. Absolutely. What are you teaching?
I taught at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. I taught
Okay.
draping, sewing, pattern drafting, a lot of stuff. They mainly put me in the draping classes just
Hmm.
because it was just it was a lot of fun to teach, and my students loved me. So
Of course they did.
I still have some of them reaching out to me to this day. Like, hey Jennifer, how's it going? I see one of them. She got me interested in Doctor Who. Well, the revamp of Doctor Who because I grew up with Doctor Who, and so she got me introduced to the convention we go to in February, and
Okay.
so this will be our third year going, but she introduced me to the convention and kind of got me back into it. So I keep in touch with some of my former students because I love seeing what they're doing and kind of it's just fun.
Absolutely. Jennifer, how do you get into underwear and bras?
Well, I went to FIT in New York, and
Uh-huh.
after your first, is it your first semester? I think like halfway through your first year,
Hmm.
they have you select a specialty to do in your second year. And I had already kind of experimented with doing evening wear because I had done that on my own. We were introduced to doing some tailoring in that first year,
Hmm.
and thinking about the different things that they were offering. There was the evening wear and bridal. I was like, well, no, because I'm not really interested in that. The tailoring, I was like, yes, it would have been really nice, but I'm like, I took a class in tailoring. I want to learn something I don't already know about. And there was one that
Mhm.
was juniors, and I'm like, well, juniors is really just, you know, women without hips. And I was like, I don't
Yes,
really need to learn how to do
and
that.
somehow taller.
And so the two other options were children's wear and lingerie. So lingerie, I was like, okay, well, I don't know anything about lingerie. Plus, there's perks. There's no sleeves. There's no buttons. There's no, construction's a lot different. I mean, yes, it's a lot more complicated, but I'm really happy that I don't have to do sleeves and buttons and collars. And then, but children's wear was actually my backup. But I got into my
Mm,
specialty, and I fell in love with it as soon as we started learning
mhm,
it. And I was like, wow, this is because it was a challenge to me. It wasn't something that like I'd self taught myself everything like at that
mhm.
point. And I'm like, it was just something that I had never even considered. I didn't even really know, oh, people make underwear and lingerie. And I'm like, well, yeah, somebody has to. And you just never really think about it. And so that's kind of how I picked that major, and it's just kind of I loved it from the beginning, and so it's kind of history from there.
Interesting. So, what is the problem with sleeves? You just don't like sleeves?
I don't like sleeves.
You have, okay. I understand.
And I've got in my robe that I'm working on, I have a sleeve, and it's I did it, and I did too much. There's too much here, and I was like, but I kind of made it a drop shoulder, so it's almost like kimono. So I
Uh-huh.
ended up just
Uh-huh.
being able to chop off the whole top of the sleeve, and it
Yes.
fits much better now.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, sleeves are. I understand them. I understand how
Uh-huh.
they function, but
Okay.
I prefer not to do sleeves. I guess.
Okay. Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
And so,
Wonderful.
did you end up going into lingerie because of your last job at Soma?
No, I actually started when I was about 14, 15,
Oh,
when I
okay.
decided I was gonna go into making clothing by size.
Okay.
So that's when I just saw the swimwear, lingerie, underwear opportunity, and because of that school, it was a corsetry school, and then they taught all of it corsets and underwear, lingerie, and swimwear, and I just loved it. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just lovely. And then I realized that, whoa, there's a lot of little pieces here and they're all slippery. And then it's like, okay, yes. And then, one of the things that I liked the most was to be able to construct this complicated, let's say a lace corset, uh, lace lingerie corset, not the corset, but the lace lingerie corset. And then I remember one night I had all these pieces and then I cut the lining and then, the two pieces for the cups, the all the pieces for the bodies and all those things. And then I cut all of that, cut it again in the lace and the mesh, right? And then I was, oh, and now what? Right? So what I did was like I went to sleep. I said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do this right now." And I went to sleep, and then I had like a dream, and then I constructed the whole thing in my head. And then the next day, I was able to stitch it really quickly. But you know how you have to do certain things at a certain order because otherwise your seams are not going to be clean finish or all those things. And I just loved it. I think it was like, okay, we can do something like that. And the delicate work, right? Like matching the lace and all that delicate thing. So that's how I actually got into lingerie and underwear.
When did you actually start your business?
Um, well, I sold the first cup in 2013, the first molded cup. And then we registered Sanders Creative actually in 2016. But I was actually doing too much at the same time. So I actually started also with browseware in the 3D world now. So I knew I didn't want to go back to tech design. So I saw a demo from 3D and my mind was blown. My jaw was like, oh, what is this? But then everybody, and I looked around in the room and I remember everybody was like, oh. like nothing, because everybody was so stressed out, right? Like, and that's what I was talking about, creativity, when you are doing the same task every day in a place where you stop being open to all of these other ideas and things. And then I was so excited about it. Everybody wanted to just go back to work, and because they were stressed out. And I was like, what? You can have another practice, and then you can export the patterns, and then you can sew this stuff. And then I was like fascinated. And then I became the owner's plea. I was always like, I texted her, I sent her an email, and I said, hey, are you expanding in the US? What are how can I help? I'm very interested. I had no idea in what area, but I just wanted to learn it, and I just wanted to be part of it. And then they were actually they had just a couple of clients here in the US, and then that's when I started now learning software, learning digital apparel. And I realized how new it was, right? They have been in business for a while, but it was very new for everybody else. And then I started uh, training companies in how to use the apparel digital software. So created materials for it, did some support questions, like one of those companies that you do a lot of everything, a little bit of everything. So I really enjoyed that because it was such a new opportunity. It was such a new, in my eyes, it was the future now. And I got to travel a lot, training different companies, and that was also a lot of fun. And also something that little did I know I was still gonna be doing now as a contractor, I do mentoring classes, I do contracting. I'm just now doing a specialty swimwear training in the software. So all of those years that I was working in the corporation and all those years that I took pattern making paid off because now I can combine all of it and then apply it to a new software. So it was really interesting. I still do it until this day, and that's how I started making my own patterns, right? So I I like drafting, but I like draping more. So I actually have done both, where I draft the pattern or drape the pattern, and then I put it in the system, I trace it in the system, and then I then make it a digital. It looks almost like a photorealistic image, right? Like you don't need a model, you don't need, granted, it has its limitations, right? Because if you're fitting underwear or bras or something like that, you need the soft tissue, which is not perfected yet. However, you can do a lot of things. It's almost like fitting on a dress form. Like if you think about that, it would be the equivalent to that. You're not going to be able to fit a bra like you would a real human, but you don't even do that in real life either, right? You have to have a person to fit the bras, and then you check some stuff in the dress form. So it's the same thing, just that you would only have the dress form option. And really happy seeing the progress of the software. They kept adding more and more 2D features. So now you can make patterns in the software. You can do a lot of things in the software and see the 3D equivalent in real life. So if you need to do lower the neckline or place the lace or do anything that lengthen it or doing some fit corrections, you are actually going to see it on 3D because it takes the physical properties of the materials, it takes a real human form, real life, actual size, everything. So you can do a lot with it. And then at the end, you can actually do a render, which means that you're going to play with the lighting, you're going to make it look really nice, you're going to have all of these things that is going to look like almost like a photo. I still think that the avatars are not there yet. I have this call on Fridays with two girls that we called ourselves 3D friends, and we talk 3D and we, explore things. And then we were like trying to figure out why is it that the avatars, it doesn't matter how realistic you can make them. They are literally people, scanned people. So it's a person. You can see imperfections, freckles, all of it. Why is it that it still look digital? And then we're like, well, it has no soul. And that's what's missing.
Yes. I was like, I have actually gone through some of the classes with Browseware. So I got
Yes.
through several of the lessons,
Yes.
and I was into the point of like, oh, customizing the avatar. And I was like,
Yes.
okay, let me take one that looks close enough in proportions. And then I plugged my measurements into it. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden, my back on the picture, so that the figure was this, my back was like this big. Like all of the boobs were in the front, and my back was the width of the spine. And I was like, I give up if I can't do a sample for myself on here. Like
Yeah,
and
I
like
can help out with that, Jennifer.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can help out with
it was frustrating because I know Lily, because Lily she found out about this through you, and she was like, oh
that.
yeah, it makes doing some custom stuff really easy.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of when I went into it. We upgraded my computer so it had the right
Yes,
hardware and software on it.
absolutely.
And then so we could actually run it, because when we first tried it, it crashed my computer. So I was like, okay, well, we need a better video card, we need better processing, so we
Yes.
upgraded that. And then would watch some videos while I was at the gym, just watching some of the videos. I was like, okay, because I can't really do it. I if I'm watching it, I'll retain it better, but sometimes like watching something and doing it is harder for me. Like, so I felt
Yes.
that it would sink in a little bit more watching the videos. And it just, I got through, a few weeks of those lessons, and I was like, okay, well, I've got other things I need to do. So I set it to the
Hmm.
side, and I looked, I still have access to it. I don't have access to
Okay.
the training anymore because I was on that beta version that they were doing for small businesses.
Oh,
And so
okay.
as far as I know, I still have access to the software, but I don't
Okay.
have access to the university anymore that
Okay.
had all the training. So
Okay.
it's like, but I don't
I-
know if anything would really work anyways, because like I said, I haven't tried anything on it because I don't know enough.
Okay. Yes, I can help with that. Anytime that
Yeah.
you have a moment, because that's the other thing, right? You're so busy,
Hmm.
and it takes some discipline and time, to be honest. It's not like you're gonna learn it and then you will be doing 30 garments in the next week. It takes a little bit of time, and this is something important to know because it's easy to get frustrated because you are under the impression that you're gonna download the software and then you're gonna get it really quick, and then but think about it, you have never seen anything even remotely close to what you're doing.
When I was going through the videos, I'm like, yes, it makes a lot of sense. It's like
Yeah.
you're actually sewing together your drafted pattern on the form.
Yes.
So it's like if you understand pattern drafting,
Yes.
for me, it made sense.
Yes.
But I just got hung up when I got to the avatar because I couldn't get an avatar that looked normal.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, I was like, I'll go back when I have time. And this was like two
Yes.
years ago. I'm like, I'm like,
2 years ago.
yeah, like it's
5 months
no,
ago. Okay.
no, this is a while ago. I mean, maybe a year
Okay.
and a half. I mean, probably 2 years ago, because it was I got together with Lily in, probably it would be 2 years in February, because
Okay.
we hung out a couple years ago when I went for the conference, and
Hmm.
she was telling me about it, and I love her. I love hanging out with her. She's so much
Yes.
fun.
Absolutely. Me too.
um,
I think she's super fun. Yes.
yeah. So but yeah, it's very intriguing to me. When I was in school,
Hmm.
they were just starting to teach Gerber, and
Me
it
too.
was it was interesting. The teacher was actually learning it as she was actually teaching us. So she would
Hmm.
look at the. It wasn't a tutorial. It was like screenshots or in a
Yes.
manual or something, because it was in what 98 or 99, and
Yep.
so it's so early, and it's I mean, digital really wasn't there. I mean, we used a little bit of
Here.
Illustrator, a
Yes.
little Photoshop. It was before they even called Illustrator and Photoshop, and they weren't the same company at that
Hmm.
point.
Yes.
So I learned a lot. I learned a little bit there, but because I think they just really weren't diving into that technology yet, I didn't really even learn any type of digital stuff until I was done teaching. Like, we didn't really focus on it at FITM,
Mhm.
where I was teaching. And then I was looking for something afterwards because I started doing some freelance pattern making, and I got this client, and the patterns were super complicated. Um, First of all, their labeling on the patterns was ridiculous because I had no idea how to sew it together. So
Mhm.
the pattern maker, the original pattern maker, kind of failed on that part. But then when I was, starting to grade the patterns, I would grade them by hand. And I'm like, okay, I understand the grading concept. I can grade this
Mhm.
really complicated pattern, but I'm like, I don't want it to take 5 hours for me to grade a skirt when, it has all sorts of pleats and tucks and darts and all sorts of stuff. And that's when I started looking for software, and I looked at a couple different ones. I think the main one was Wild Ginger. And that one, I don't think it really did what I wanted it to do. Like, I don't think you could use it for commercial purposes. And then I found Poly Pattern, which is a company. It's based out of Greece. And so I reached out to them saying, I was interested in it. Kind of what's the pricing, and um, it was within, not really in my budget at that point, but at that point they were also looking for somebody in the US that could help rep it. So I kind of learned the software, did a bunch of training with them, and in really the first year, maybe even first 2 years I used it, all I used it was to grade. So I would do my pattern drafting and digitize the pattern, and then learn how to do the grading. Now I do everything in the software. I don't do anything by hand anymore, because it's like
Nice.
it's I prefer it now. And I'm one of those people. I was like, okay, never. I'm never going to not hand draft. And now I'm like, yeah, I don't want to hand draft.
Yes,
But
I
yeah,
felt that way before too.
but I mean, just being able to understand the grading, be able to do the grading on the
Mhm.
computer, just it saves so much time and energy, and
It
yeah,
does. I agree with you. I also think that it is extremely important to have the knowledge on how to do it by hand
yeah,
because you are able to translate that into your software in any software would do. Um, but is that knowledge what matters? It's not, I think that there is a lot of this fast movement, fast paced moment right now that everybody wants everything because of AI and because of the computer and because of the software, that everything is going to be so fast and done. And then I skip all my part where I have to learn how to actually do it. But these are tools. And that's something that I try to tell people all the time to, if you know the basics, if you know the pattern shapes, if you know how to marker, grading, pattern maker or whatever, you're using the tool to, you know what your objective is. And that's very different than learning how to do any button or menu or how to, uh, one thing is the functionality of the software and what each button does, and another thing is that use this tool to do to obtain the goal that you're looking for. And that is very important to clarify when it comes to all this technology, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree, because I've actually had a number of people reach out to me. They're like, "Oh, I want to create my own pattern company. Does your software really does it do the designing?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "You do the pattern making in the software. You have to
Mhm.
understand how the patterns work. You can't just tell it and show a picture of, like, I want this shirt to have this thing. It's not going to do it for you." Now, there is software out there that does that, where they have these templates built in where you can just go
Mhm.
in and modify them.
Yeah,
Um, but that's not what I do. That's not what I want to do. I don't know if I would
absolutely.
enjoy doing that. I mean, because you're really just taking somebody else's work. I mean, I guess, like, if you don't have the time and you need to do something,
Mhm.
that's a possibility. But
It
I
could
don't
also
know.
be a starting point, right?
Yeah,
Because that if it was that easy, then all commercial patterns would be successful. You
yeah,
get a piece of paper that it already has a pattern, and then it will be beautiful for your body when you.
hmm,
And we all know that doesn't
yeah,
work that way. So it's interesting. I'm actually very curious about that software. I would love to see it too.
yeah, yeah. And actually, Cassie just downloaded the trial version, so she's going to experiment with it. She
Okay.
said after our conversation, she's actually decided to take the plunge and learn digital. So learn
Nice.
it. So, and I told her, because I am repping it, that I would show her. She's got a pattern she's working on right now. I was like, well, we can scan it in. I'll show you how we can grade it, and we'll do that as your demo. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. I was like,
Very nice.
happy to share it. And honestly, even having more and more people who kind of from this background area, like we're in the lingerie,
Mhm.
it solidifies that, hey, we can actually work together, because if one person needs help with a pattern, we can reach in and say, okay, I can help out. And we could get your advice for working browseware. We can have Lily's advice with why isn't this cup fitting? You know,
Yes, exactly.
so we can kind of bounce ideas off each other and really have it as a collaborative group.
Love
Um,
it. Absolutely love it.
yeah, I was
I
like,
love it,
and I've
Jennifer.
yeah, and I've been working with a handful of people that I'm trying to kind of bring in my circle. Like, okay, can you help with this? Or I'll learn.
Mhm.
We can learn a little bit about this, and we're gonna have our
Absolutely.
own empire.
Yes, I love the sound of that. Yes,
So
and
let's
talking
see.
about empires, I'm very much looking forward to the song retreat in the spring.
Yeah. So of everything that you have designed for your own business, so for
Yes.
in the way of your patterns, what is your favorite? Which is your favorite pattern?
I
Which
would
one
have,
should everyone go out and buy because it's your favorite one?
yes, I would say the Daisy bralette. It's a very easy pattern. It's simple. I was thinking about what could be something that could be very enjoyable to do, and you're gonna finish it sooner than later, rather than later, right? And it's very versatile. You can use different fabrics. Like if you use a cotton fabric or solid fabric, you can even use it as a little kind of bustier-ish kind of thing, or
So
you can make a lace.
is it woven fabrics or is it
No,
non-stretch or stretch?
it's stretch. It's
Stretch. Okay.
stretch. Yes, and it's also it's alpha sizing, small, medium, large,
Okay.
extra large. And then there's a chart in the back. But I I really designed it with a lot of love and a lot of fun. And I remember I offered it before it was ready to a store in Atlanta. And it was this sewing studio that was amazing, super beautiful in Palms City Market in Atlanta. I don't know if you've been, but there is this person. She actually, her site is Top Stitch Atlanta ATL actually, and then she has this community also. Well, actually, she started the community after COVID, sewing community, but she had these sewing classes, and it was a very pretty brick wall studio. And then I went there, and then we were talking about, she has a lot of indie patterns. So I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, but I couldn't find the time, Jennifer. So I was winning. I always thought that I could do a lot more than I could actually do in real life. So I said, "Oh yeah, let's do this pattern and this one, and it will be so exciting." And in my head, and it took me so long to finish to put it together. And then we had a kit to go with it, so people could have all the materials, because that's the other thing, right? Like not only the pattern, but are people gonna be able to find all of the materials to make it? So I realized the amount of time that it took. Granted, because I was having fun, I didn't take it into account. But the other day when we were talking in the other podcast with you, and you mentioned that you actually priced a per hour rate for yourself, I started thinking, wow, this is what happens when you love what you do and you have fun what you do, because you don't really take into account the amount of money and time that it takes. Well, actually, the time that translates to money. So thank you for that. It's been in my head since you mentioned it. You planted the seed to,
Yeah, and I've been keeping track of every time I sat down to work on this robe. I actually have a running tally of how long it's taken me. So it's really helping me as well. It's making me more
yes.
accountable. So I'm going to record it, know exactly what type of time it takes me. So
Okay.
yes, I'm glad that it encouraged you because it also encouraged me. So,
Do you also think that things are gonna take less time than you estimate?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, my
Yes.
my whole being able to multitask has gone out the window since I hit 40. I could do a million more, and actually, it probably since before I had my kid. Once I had
Okay.
the kid, that just adds in, like, you think thinks it may take you a month. It'll take me 4 months now that I got a kid.
Hmm.
Um, but Yeah, I mean, I kind of have always, I try not to underestimate my time. I'm always trying to
Hmm.
overestimate. So I'm like, okay, I know it's going to take me, if I were to sit down and do it, it'll take me 3 weeks. So if I just say that I've got to turn around in like 8 weeks, that should be fine. But then, life happens. And before you know it, it's like that 3 weeks. It's like, oh, okay, now I got to put my phone on silent and work on this so I can complete it within this deadline that I promised that I was going to have done, beforehand. But yeah, no, I can't, because I also have so many different things going on trying to balance my time. Like I recently put down, actually in my notebook here, I have tried to break down on a day by day basis with time that, same this. So in this notebook, I have times now saying, okay, I'm going to work out, I'm going to walk, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do like broken
Yes.
up. This is Mondays. So like,
Okay.
so I'm trying to do that so I can prioritize and make sure I dedicate the time to work on specific projects. So if I'm working on, let's see, I have on Monday here that I'm going to work on website stuff. On Tuesday, I work on client stuff. On Wednesday, I work on filming my courses. On Thursday, I edit my courses, and I think Friday is when I work on my own patterns. So, but I still have not followed this, and I wrote this out 2 weeks ago. So,
Okay, okay. But I actually was about to ask you a little bit more about how you time manage because you do a lot, Jennifer. Every time that I talk with you, you're doing two or three more things, and they're not small things.
no,
They're
like going up to
gigantic things
Alabama.
with two trucks, not
Yeah,
one.
the two trucks. And now dealing with all that. Yeah.
And
Um,
dealing with all that, it takes a long time just to, I mean, they're looking for getting the stuff is one thing, sorting all of the stuff and then label them and organize them and all that, it's another that's a full-time job right there. So how do you
I mean,
get so much done?
I have to put it on my calendar. I have to break it down that I have, like, the only reason I'm actually getting any type of workout done is because I stuck it on my calendar. My friend's been doing these self-defense fitness classes on Tuesdays, which is where I was when we apparently were supposed to have our call, which I totally wrote down the wrong time. So that's where I was. I was
Okay.
punching a punching bag. Um,
Okay. Okay. I love punching and
yeah.
kicking. I love kickboxing stuff. So, wow. Okay. So that's how you release your stress,
I need to
punching a
be
punching bag.
I need to be doing more. But like, limiting myself, just trying to block out that time. And then I try, by 3 to 5 o'clock. So either before I pick up my daughter or by the end of a workday, I'm done. Like I just, I don't do anything else. Like I'm off limits. Now with the hooks and eyes we brought back, my daughter loves to package them. So sometimes what we'll do is in the afternoon, we'll sit down in front of the TV, put on a movie, and we sit there and package. So it's,
Wow.
she
Okay.
loves doing it. So yes, it's work, but we're also hanging out. I don't
Okay.
count that as the work, but like, but finding the time to do these edits. Like I finally finished
Mhm.
editing the one with the four of us. I haven't even looked at Cassie's video I did last week.
Mhm.
I haven't filmed my intros, outros. I'm like, yeah, this is, I know they tell you that you should have 10 podcasts kind of all ready to go before you launch your first one.
Mhm.
And so we'll see. I'm hoping to get my first one out next month. So I don't think I'm going to have 10 recorded by then. But,
Okay.
just putting it on the calendar and just forcing myself to do things and,
Mhm.
have hiring help when you need it.
Yes. Do you take specific days off or you go by when you feel like you need it?
Um, Weekends, I try not to work on weekends. If
Okay.
I don't have to, I don't do it.
Hmm.
Sundays, I don't get dressed. I don't take a shower. I just hang at home and do whatever. Or we go to swim at my parents' house, and then that counts as a shower, right?
Sure.
Um, I try not to work on the weekends. Something always comes up.
Okay.
Like when we had to go to Alabama, that then became all Labor Day weekend. So it's like we work the entire weekend. But I also take off time. It's like I pick up my daughter. I'm like, hey, maybe we'll go hang out. We'll go do something in the afternoon. We'll go visit my parents. And so, I'll take off some time in the afternoon because I know I've done extra stuff on the weekends. I just kind of make up
Hmm.
for it. So it's
Hmm.
just trying not to setting your boundaries and setting your limits, because it's easy to say, oh, well, I can do that. I can do that. It's like, no, because sometimes if it's something that I know I need to do that I don't want to do, it takes me 2 to 3 times as long to do it when it's not scheduled. Like, so if I'm like, okay, so I need to go film, edit some videos, and I'll sit there and play around on Facebook for a little while, do a little bit of editing, Facebook, respond to emails. And like, when I could have done it all within 1 hour, but instead it's taken me 4 hours because I didn't want to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and just kind of forcing myself to have to do it during that time.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. Um,
Because
w-
we procrastinate when we don't want to do something, we procrastinate, and it
Tell me
just makes
about it.
things take longer. I'm like, you're better
Yes.
off just doing it.
Yes, absolutely. I can relate a lot. I actually was um hiding from my accountant for like a whole year. And of course I had to pay the consequences in December. But I was hiding because I didn't want to deal with it. I was so overwhelmed. I was crying all the time because I couldn't understand accounting. That is the one thing that I absolutely don't want to do. Like anything administrative or accounting or things like that. Oy, ay, oy. But and I ended up feeling really burnt out. It's a real thing. Like I never thought I was gonna get to that point of exhaustion, but I didn't have one day off. I didn't. I was doing so many different things, and at the end of the day, I felt like I never did one thing right. Like I wanted to do it because I wasn't paying all my attention to it. I was just spreading myself too thin because I was trying to do this and do this, and everything looked important. Everything seemed so important. So that's something that I'm taking from this conversation as well.
I know. And
How,
besides that, I mean, I go to the chiropractor every 2 weeks. And
oh,
he's not in
interesting.
town. He's actually in the next town over. So I have a nice little 30-minute drive that I can relax, think about things in the car,
Mhm.
go get a nice adjustment, and drive 30 minutes home. And then I was doing every 2 weeks, I was having a massage, but now I'm just doing it every 3 weeks because it got a little expensive. But I see a massage therapist every 3 weeks. And so
Okay.
she helps me work through the stuff that is in my shoulders, so she helps release that. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
More for me, it's in the upper back area.
Yeah.
Um, and I was also seeing an acupuncturist for a little while, but I didn't put it on my calendar, so I haven't been going. So, and honestly, the acupuncturist, I had complete release. Like I'm in there, like with all the
Okay.
needles in, the tears start coming down. It's like it just complete release of energy. Like
Okay.
doing things like that for yourself, whether it's going to do a workout or going to get a massage or going and
Mhm.
just sitting and having coffee with someone who you just met, so another businesswoman, something like that, just to kind of like get away from what you're doing, bitch about the stuff you don't want to do, let them hear them bitching about it too, so you're not alone.
Yes.
Um, I got together with uh, the founder of the St. Pete Girl Bosses, and we on Wednesday we had dinner. It was me, her, and another woman, and just talking. It was just talking about the things that stress us out, and what are our plans, what are we doing, how we got started. It was honestly, it was really healthy for me mentally to talk to somebody who is not directly involved in my industry or my own business, because
Mm-hmm.
they're completely unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
The one lady, she does like sound baths, and so she helps. A sound bath, you know what that is? It's
Yes. Yes,
yes.
with the crystal balls.
Yes. So the
Yes,
one lady
love
does
it.
those. I've never done one. So the one woman did that, and then Sandy, who runs the Girl Bosses, who kind of does everything. Um, so it's actually, it was really nice to kind of just chat, and you know,
Hmm.
it's with other people that are really like minded. So it doesn't even
Yes.
have to be related. Like we have a similar industry, but I'm being able to just kind of get out, do a networking group, go to a group on a Friday morning, take off the morning, and you feel more energized to be able to say, okay, you know what? I worked through something because I had a conversation with somebody unrelated that is going through the same struggles. How did they deal with it? And I can, you can learn from them. So
Wow,
it's helpful.
Jennifer, thank you. I
Yeah.
can relate to absolutely everything. It makes a lot of sense. Do
Yeah.
you consider that you live in the moment? Like I feel that from what you're saying. Like you drive half an hour to the chiropractor and then you seem to enjoy that drive.
Yes.
Like you live the moment
Yeah. Yeah,
in the
it's like it's
moment.
not a task. If I didn't want to go to him, there's
Mhm.
chiropractors down the street.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't need to go to Tampa to find a really good chiropractor. I like him a lot. So
Mhm.
he actually helps my headaches. They're all gone now. I don't get the headaches like I used to.
Oh,
So I'm really happy about that. But like I use that time by myself to really, just kind of be present with myself. And yeah,
mhm,
maybe I'm working through some stuff like business wise, but it's also it gives me that chance to just kind of think things through. And sometimes it is like, okay, I don't know how to sew this, and I'm thinking about, okay, so if I sew this seam first or this seam first, and you're using that time where it's not like you're not on the clock. It's
mhm.
you just have that extra time. Like while you're in the massage table, you can do the same thing. While you're listening to someone talk at a coffee or like at a networking thing, you don't have to actually be listening to them. You just have to be there. you know you zone out into another world. No one's
Yes,
calling your name.
I love a coffee shop.
Yeah.
That's my I love a coffee shop for sure and talking with friends. Thank you, Jennifer. That I'm gonna try the acupuncture. I've been thinking about it. I did it some time ago, but not for releasing or anything like that. So I think I'm gonna look into that. And chiropractor, I guess that I have to get I don't know, ask around for recommendations. That would be my only thing.
Yeah, I think taking care of your body is just important, whatever
Yes.
type of taking care of your body it is. And for me, I put on a fair amount of weight after having my daughter, and so I have a lot of joint pain because of that extra weight. So I was
Mhm,
having to go to the chiropractor and the acupuncturist and the massage to deal with the pain that I have, but I've been able
mhm,
to manage it and work through other things too.
mhm.
It's, yeah, take care of ourselves. We're not machines. We are people.
Absolutely. I thought I was. I thought I was
Yeah,
a robot, but then realized after a few years that no, I'm not.
yeah,
I'm very human, very much human.
yeah. Well, I've had a great conversation with you. We'll have to do this again. Um,
Yes,
but I wanted to say thank you for joining. So I look
and
forward to meeting you in March
in
in
March,
person. Yes.
I am so looking. I already packed. I already have. I am so excited. I already packed.
Cool.
Um, Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Thank you for tuning into my podcast. In my next episode, I have a captivating conversation with Lily Fong of Lily Pad Designs. Lily is one of our featured teachers for the Spring Lingerie Retreat. For more information on the Spring 2025 Lingerie Retreat, go to lingerieretreat.com.